on your smart speaker,
on 104 FM,
on DAB across Cambridge,
and online.
This is Huntingdon Community Radio News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7, Liz Truss is understood to be battling to save her short reign as Prime Minister on the day her new Chancellor scrapped almost all tax cuts announced last month. Jeremy Hunt's also confirmed energy bills will become more targeted from April. He had a stark warning about the challenges ahead.
This government will take the difficult decisions necessary to ensure there is trust and confidence in our national finances. That means decisions of eye-watering difficulty.
Meanwhile, Ms Truss finally made it to the House of Commons after facing ridicule from MPs for skipping an urgent question aimed at her. Charles Walker has become the 5th Tory MP to publicly suggest she should go.
Her position is untenable. She has put colleagues, the country, through a huge amount of unnecessary pain. I think it's her decision right now, but I think if she doesn't go right now, it will not be her decision.
2 people have died after a Russian warplane exploded on impact after crashing into a residential area in the port of Yeysk, opposite the south coast of Ukraine. Officials are blaming an engine failure. 19 more are injured. Manchester United footballer Mason Greenwood has been remanded in custody after appearing in court on charges of attempted rape, controlling and coercive behaviour and assault. All allegations relate to one woman. Wasps have made all their 167 employees, including players and coaching staff, redundant after they became the second rugby union club in 3 weeks to fall into administration. They followed Worcester in being relegated from the Premiership. Sam Saunders was a caretaker at the training ground. He's hoping a buyer can be found.
It is a sad day, a few tears, but you never know what's around the corner. They reckon in the next 72 hours there might be somebody coming.
And Glastonbury tickets are going up by £70. They'll now cost $340, which includes a booking fee. That's the latest. I'm Fader Silver.
This is the HCR 104 FM weather forecast.
Tonight we'll have long clear spells with light winds, allowing it to turn quite chilly with a grass frost and fog patches forming. Fog becoming dense in places before dawn. Minimum temperature tonight 2 degrees. And the outlook for Tuesday, a chilly start for Tuesday with the grass frost and fog patches which may slow to clear in places, then largely dry and sunny with light winds. There will be a freshening easterly breeze later with a maximum temperature tomorrow of 15 degrees.
That was the HCR 104 FM weather forecast.
Now, another hour of hits and memories
From Huntingdon's truly local radio station.
Over to you
On HCR 104 FM.
HCR.
You're listening to Norman Knapper on HCR 104 FM.
Hits and memories. HCR.
He walked into my life, and now he's taking over, and it's beautiful. Yes, it's beautiful. I've gone with better looking guys. He's gone with prettier looking girls, but now we're beautiful. I think we're beautiful. I don't need love affairs anymore. I don't need love affairs anymore. Can't you see it's the chemistry? You must agree together we are beautiful. We are so beautiful. I am the rain, he is the sun, and now we've made a rainbow. I think it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. just let me in my name. This would be beautiful. This would be so beautiful. I don't need love affairs anymore. No, I don't need love affairs anymore. Can't you see? Oh, it's the chemistry. And together we are beautiful. We are beautiful. Can't you see? It's the chemistry. You must agree together we are beautiful. We are
There we go. That was Together We Are Beautiful by a young lady called Fern Kinney. Good evening, everybody. It is Monday evening. You're listening to me, Norman Knapper, with the Monday night edition of Over to You. And this evening, we are on our monthly Cambridge meeting that we have with somebody from Cambridge Council or thereabouts, or even equated with Cambridge Council. And normally it's on scams, different sort of scams. And this evening I have a gentleman in the studio with me who is one of our Antipodean brethren. And we are going to talk about fraud and cybercrime. And the gentleman's name is Mark Rabel. It's Sergeant Mark Rabel from Cambridge Police. So I'll say to Mark, good evening, Mark, how are you?
G'day, Norman, and g'day to everyone who's listening. Thanks very, very much for inviting me here. I did note you mentioned Antipodean. If any of your listeners want to talk about the Ashes, I'm also happy to talk about that as well.
Oh, don't go there, Mark. Don't go there, Mark, please. For our listeners, tell us a little bit about yourself first, Mark, please.
Okay, thank you. Well, as he said, I'm a serving police officer. I'm a police sergeant. I work for Cambridgeshire Constabulary, have been for 21 years, or a bit over. July marked 21 years. And I've done a variety of roles within the constabulary, from response policing to neighbourhood policing to being the grumpy custody sergeant to working in our control room and a couple of specialist type roles. And 21 years later, I head up a small team where we specialise in fraud and cybercrime prevention. And that keeps me out of mischief. And believe it or not, after 21 years of working, I'm still enjoying going to work. I get up in the morning and I think, I'm like a kid in a sweetie shop. What am I going to do today? And I have a lot of fun. I originally joined to lock up crooks and drive really fast. And over the 21 years, I've done plenty of both. And I've had a lot of fun. I've locked up a lot of people.
Okay, well, while we're still on this subject, before we go on to it, what made you come to the UK?
I didn't like the wife. Yes, I came over here, and then, as you do, you met a girl from Ireland, as it happens, and children came along, and here's I stayed.
You stayed? Oh, yeah. Right, okay. So you didn't like a certain lady in Australia there?
Well, a little bit unkind. We amiable, but things move on, don't they?
They do. Anyway, let's get back to why you're here this evening, Mark. Tell us specifically what the fraud and crime section does.
So, our fraud and cybercrime prevention team, we get our work streams in two ways. So, we get referrals from action fraud, where people have reported fraudulent activity, and we get a weekly list, probably about 120 to 140 referrals every week where people have been defrauded. And we do an individual follow-up with each and every one of the people, and depending on the value of the loss. It could range from an email or a letter to a telephone call to an actual visit and multiple visits, depending on that. We also work with the banks, and we follow what we could refer to as the banking protocol, which is where if your bank thinks that there's some suspicious activity going on in your account, or something's not quite right, or the customer's potentially a victim of a fraud, they'll refer the matter to us, and we'll engage with that person, their customer, to find out are they actually being defrauded, or is what they're doing legitimate. So we get our workloads from action fraud via the banks, sometimes instances that get telephoned in via 101 or 999 sometimes, or follow-up visits from our response officers that are out dealing with people day in and day out. The other half of our work relates to community engagement, where, like I'm doing now, I'm speaking to you, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get out to a few people. So we'll go out and we'll educate people in how to stay safe and not become a target of a fraudster that's going to rip you off.
I know we were talking off air and in the green room about my particular situation. Would my action fraud have been referred to you, or would it just have gone into the big file at action fraud? Would it have been
No, it would have come through as a referral, and within that, when you reported the matter to action fraud, they would have done sort of risk matrix with you,
right?
And generally speaking, depending on the nature of the fraud, they'll rate it as low, medium, and high.
Right. Yeah.
So we'll actually go through the entire list, because sometimes people who rate themselves as low risk from a fraud perspective are actually, we would call, high risk, and sometimes vice versa. So we scrutinise that, and then we will give an enhanced service. The team that I've got has only been set up in the last 12 months, so this is something relatively new for Cambridgeshire Constabulary.
Where are you actually based, Mark? Are you based in Cambridge itself, or
yeah, we're based at Hinchinbrook from headquarters. Police headquarters.
Yeah.
But our team cover the whole county, including Peterborough.
Yeah. That's where my son works. Is the Hinchinbrook headquarters? Yeah, we were saying before. He's probably been reading some of your reports, making sure you've done the right protocols, I would imagine, on that one.
Maybe.
No, he does mostly arrests and what have you. He makes sure that the rules were followed. Now, what's the situation nationally on this sort of thing, Mark?
Yeah, so here's some scary sorts of numbers. So the current estimates would put the loss for fraud within the UK at about £192 billion a year. That's a huge amount of money. I can't even get my head around all those noughts. It's bucket loads, isn't it? Fraud equates to over 40% of all recorded crime within the UK. About 67% of it is cyber enabled or computer enabled, if you like. Less than 1% of fraud cases, if you like, will actually end up in court. Less than 1%. So effectively, when your money's gone, it's gone. You're never going to get it back. So that's huge. It's a significant problem. And when we're talking about those sorts of monies, the potential and facts that businesses go broke, businesses put their prices up. It affects whole communities in relation to what we can and can't, spend our limited pennies, as we got less off nowadays, on what we could. So it's a really, really significant problem. And given that so few fraudsters actually ever get caught and are held to account, and next to nothing of money comes back, it's an unmitigated disaster. But it is a crime that doesn't bleed or scream, so it doesn't always get the higher profile attention that other crimes, which probably quite rightly do need to get. But it's something that affects us all. Even today, you would have had text messages saying you're entitled to some money from a energy rebate, or you've been in contact with someone who's got COVID, or you've had an email saying you haven't paid your telly licence, or something like. Every day people are trying to scam money from us. It's absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, I was going to say something there, and it's gone completely out of my mind. No, it's gone. What about locally then, Mark, on the other side of the coin? What's the situation locally?
I'll just give you some action fraud stats that come through. So, as I said, each week we get about 120 to 140 referrals. That's on a weekly basis of people that have reported fraud via Action Fraud. Now, Action Fraud is not an investigating agency. They don't investigate any fraud, they just record it. However, if there are viable lines of inquiry, they'll also refer that information, and we'll raise a crime, and then we will investigate. But we get about 120 to 140 referrals in a week. On average, in Cambridgeshire alone, about £1.5 to £4 million worth of fraud gets reported by people every month, which is outrageous. £1.5 to £4 million every month, and that's growing a lot. So the typical types of frauds that we get in Cambridgeshire, there's a few. So investment scams, where people are saying, well, you need to invest here and you can double your money and what have you, and then you lose it and end up paying more money to get your money back, which actually just disappears into a bigger hole. We get romance scams, very sadly, from people who think that they're going to marry the love of their life and give lots of money away, and their money goes. We get mandate type fraud, which is where people are tricked into paying invoices that actually is from like some bogus company, or actually get billed with the same sort of thing. Loads of online fraud. And also, one of the ones that's been going around over the last few months is the WhatsApp scam, where your son or your daughter will send you a text message via WhatsApp saying, Mum, I've lost my phone, it's gone down the toilet, I'm borrowing a friend's phone, I urgently need some money to get it fixed, I'm at the phone repair shop now, can you send me some money? Which is a scam. And actually the preceding month, I think about 20 grand went from parents in Cambridgeshire giving money like this away. Last month, and we've been sort of like talking about it to lots of people, last month people lost £30,000 off this sort of scam. So there are lots of different types of frauds, but they would be the main ones. And I said £1.5 million to £4 million disappears every month. And for 99.9% of those people, they'll never ever see those pennies again. It's gone.
Yeah. I've remembered the question I was going to ask you before, Mark. With regards to fraudsters, are they physically based in the UK, or are they using bogus UK telephone numbers?
Both. So telephone numbers is a type of fraud. So fraudsters commit their fraud via the post, via telephone, via mobile phone, via computer, sometimes in person. So typically, well, like when I started policing, the crooks, you'd put a mask over your face and take a sawn-off shotgun and go and rob the bank. But it's true. I remember that sort of like, the cops to play cops and robbers properly. Nowadays they're much more sophisticated, but the different types of frauds that we will encounter in what we do is most of them are online enabled, use some form of technology. But the other types of fraud, which is not online enabled, will be via your telephone, like a landline. And will be for people knocking on the door saying, your driveway needs doing, let's put something on it that you can still grow grass through, it's not grass proof, or your roof needs doing. And that type of fraudulent activity generally targets the most vulnerable in our community. Quite often people who are quite elderly and isolated, and sometimes lonely. And that is insidious type crime. That's an in-person type crime. In answer to your question, is it like telephone? So telephone, depending on what type. So landline is a type of fraud, but if it's internet enabled, it potentially would be via your mobile phone. So there's different types.
Okay, that's brilliant. We're going for a break, Mark, and we'll be back in a minute with, and I'm going to ask you a few more questions. So here we go, folks. This is going to be a very interesting evening, so keep tuned.
Spotlight is our arts magazine show here on Huntingdon Community Radio, broadcasting live every Friday from 8 till 10 p.m. We're currently looking for local music acts to come and perform live from our studio here in Huntingdon. If you're local to Huntingdon and would like to come and play on our show, please send an email to establish contact to spotlight@hcrfm.co.uk. That's spotlight@hcrfm.co.uk.
Santapod Raceway presents Flamin' Thunder, Saturday the 29th of October. This family-friendly Halloween extravaganza has fire-breathing jets and drag racing demos on track. An action-packed day full of stunts on both 2 and 4 wheels, plus 2 mighty monster trucks causing mayhem. Don't miss this fun-filled end-of-season finale with Titan the Robot and a huge fireworks display. Saturday the 29th of October. Visit Santapod.com for tickets and the full lineup. Kids, just £5.
Santapod. If using your bathroom has become difficult or you are worried about slipping or falling, it's time to speak to the Bathing Mobility Advisory Service, your local mobility bathroom specialist. The Bathing Mobility Advisory Service will design and install a safe, comfortable and fully accessible modern bathroom that meets all your mobility needs. You can rely on us to expertly manage every aspect of the project from start to finish with a caring and professional service. Regain your independence and peace of mind in as little as 4 days. Speak with the Bathing Mobility Advisory Service today on 01480 879 754. That's Huntingdon 879 754. Or go to bathingmobility.co.uk to arrange your free design and quote appointment. The Bathing Mobility Advisory Service. We take care of all your needs.
There we go, that was a good oldie there. That was Tusk by Fleetwood Mac. Right, I'm talking to Sergeant Mark Rabel from Rabel. Is it Rabel, is it, Mark?
Rabel, yes.
Rabel. From the Fraud and Cybercrime Prevention Unit at Hinchinbrook. They're based at Hinchinbrook. headquarters. Now, Mark, before the break, we were talking about the situations both nationally and locally. But what is the difference between fraud and cybercrime?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it actually it's fraud. Fraud is the key term. So fraud is probably best described as like thievery using trickery. So someone's stolen something, they've committed a theft, but they've used some form of deception to get it. So that's effectively what fraud is: theft by trickery. Cybercrime is something that involves some form of computer or mobile phone, and is generally internet based. So it's like computerized crime. So a lot of fraud, as I was saying earlier, about 67% of fraud is cyber enabled, which means that someone has used a computer or a mobile phone to actually facilitate the fraud and the trickery to get your money parted to their pockets. So that's in essence, that's the difference.
Or in my case, both, because they use both the mobile phone and my computer to get the money.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. So let's say, well, I did in actual fact, and you know the outcome. What happens if I lose my money?
In 99% of the cases, you'll never get it back. It's gone. You wave goodbye to it. I've been in people's houses, and we break some quite sad news to them in relation to monies. As I said, about $1.5 million to $4 million a month goes missing in CAMS. We're working with people right now that have recently lost close to £1 million. The other month I was in someone's house who'd lost 90,000. Working with a couple that's some form of investment property sale type thing, where they're selling a property that they own. Now they're getting on a bit in years, and they so far spent £200,000 selling their £100,000 property that they still own. And you know, we chuckle in relation to it, but it's really scary. We worked with some poor lady that lost her £2 million house and has been made destitute and homeless, and is now in council accommodation because she's lost everything. So it's really terrible. And one of the things that when I talk about fraud and cyber, because we get all these like text messages and emails on a daily basis, and you're constantly hearing, oh, you need to have a secure password and you need to do this. It's a bit of an abstract concept for most, because we think, oh yeah, that's good, but then we never actually change our habits. Unlike if I say wear a seatbelt, otherwise your head could hit the front of the windscreen if you crash. You may have been involved in a car accident or know someone that has, so you can emotionalise and you think, yeah, actually he's probably right, I should do that, and you probably will. But where it comes to fraud, and particularly cyber type crime or computer enabled crime, it's kind of abstract. So what I like to do is I try to emotionalise the subject just to get a little bit of buy-in, and I apologise in advance if I emotionalise it and it isn't very nice, but sometimes I need to do that.
Yeah, that's true. Now, all well and good. Well, it's not well and good, but it's. We talk generally about losing money. On the other side of the coin, or on the other corridor, as it were, there's a thing called identity theft.
Yes, and this is what that's a really good question. So money is the end game. That's what the fraudster wants. They want to rip you off or rip someone else off or use you to get someone else. So when you get defrauded, and when we'll talk about cyber type fraud, like over your phone or your computer and that, and they get into your account, and you lose your identity. So they're trawling for your identity, your information, your email address, who you are. So that they'll use that information when they've stolen your credentials. For a couple of different reasons. So it could be that someone's managed to get into your Wi-Fi network at home, and a simple thing, so they're going to stream their Netflix movies using your Wi-Fi connection and effectively steal from you that way. Could be that someone gets into your account and steals your username and password, so then they can start doing online shopping, pretending that they're you, different delivery address, they can set it up. Go a little bit further down the track, people can start to take out loans on under your name. Go a little bit further down the track and people start to use things for nasty reasons. So someone's hacked into your Wi-Fi at home, or you've got your username and password, and they start accessing kiddie porn. And then you've got the cops knocking on your door at 6 o'clock in the morning, seizing every electronic item in your house, whilst it's investigated, and it might take several weeks, if not months, for you to clear your name. But meanwhile, you're under a cloud of child pornography. Could be that they use the dark web and they go and buy a military bazooka with grenades or a grenade launcher, and then instead of having the police knock on your door, you're going to have the military knocking on your door, potentially blowing it up to get into your house to arrest you and take everyone away. So your online identity is really, 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 really important, and the consequence of actually something really bad happening to you and your family as a result of your details being stolen can be quite significant. And apologies if I've kind of like over dramatised that, but it is important to know that whilst most of us are subject to attempts for small type scams, it can be quite tricky. I was speaking to a fellow the other day, and he was saying, "Oh, I'll keep all my stuff safe." I said, "Yeah, well, what about if I hacked into your mate and then I pretended to be him, so then I sent you some information in saying, oh, click on this because it's probably good." And you think, "Oh, that's from my mate, I trust him," and then you click on it because it's that. So there's all sorts of different ways your identity can actually be used for nefarious reasons. Awful.
Yeah. When just to clarify for people that when they click on these, I won't say attachment, but say links that they get sometimes in their emails, what actually happens? Do you actually know what happens?
Yeah, I do, and that's I love this question. It's like a kid in a sweetie shop. The Constabulary's paid me to learn so much about different things, and it's quite interesting. So I'm not going to go too technical because it will just turn people off. But as a basic computer input in your computer, whether it be Linux, IBM, Windows, Apple, and a couple of others, they're all built on the same sort of like design principles, and that's where you've got your BIOS. So when you switch your computer on, it checks the keyboard, it checks the monitor, it checks what components it's got on the board. Then it loads the operating system, whether it be Windows or Apple or Linux or whatever it might be. And then on top of that, you've got your application software, like your word processor, your email client, your internet browser, etc. But it all starts from the BIOS level and then works up. So the BIOS is the area that is kind of susceptible to being attacked physically. So my mother was a typist, like proper typewriter typist, and in her prime, I guess, Mum could type about 120 words a minute. I'm not a very good typist, so on my keyboard at work, I can probably do somewhere between 30 and 40 words a minute, maybe a little bit more. But the computers, they'll accept up to about 6,000 characters a minute as a speed, which is about 700-800 words a minute. We can't type that fast, but 700-800 words a minute. So what happens is that these hackers, the people that want to steal from you, they will write some code that will tell your computer what to do. And your computer isn't... It won't reason, it'll just follow instructions. So if the code's written correctly, it could write a code, so right, I want to go into your documents, I want you to copy all your password information, I want all your pictures, and I want it immediately emailed to this address. And the computer will just follow it because it's an instruction. But because it's going in at a rate of about 600 to 800 words a minute, it happens in the blink of an eye. So that's horrible code. It's just code that's written and goes in there. But for me to do that at your computer, I'd need to be in your room next to your equipment to do it. So what these people do is that they will create the code, they'll create it as an attachment, like a spreadsheet or a Word document or a web link, and then they'll email you with some socially engineered reason as to why you should click on this link and claim your £400 from the government for your energy back. Or it's from your mate who they've hacked and they've stolen his identity, saying, oh, click on this picture because it's really funny. You click on it and in the blink of an eye, some nefarious code is injected into your computer. You won't even know it's happened. And then all of a sudden they're in, and once they're in, then they can start having some real fun in harvesting whatever data you've got.
That's what happens with ransomware, is it? If you click on it, you get ransomware.
Yeah, similar sort of like principle. So the phishing emails and vishing and smishing and all these sort of like crazy words that we use nowadays. Yes, it's basically malicious software that's actually gotten to your computer. So ransomware will actually inject some code and it will completely lock your hard drive until you pay whatever the ransom is per the instructions on the screen. or it could be a malicious code. So instead of shopping at Amazon, you're redirected to a spoof copy of Amazon. So you're putting in all your details, completing your purchases, but actually you're passing all your credit card details and purchase history to a third company.
Yeah, well, that is bad, isn't it? So, and it's so you mentioned there phishing. You mentioned phishing.
Yep.
What is phishing?
So these people that write these horrible codes, they know that a lot of people are computer savvy, and they'll think, "Oh, we're taught never to click on this link." But there are people that will click, and who are susceptible to believing that's what you do. So they will send out bucket loads, thousands upon thousands of these bogus type emails, phishing really, chuck out a net and see what we can catch, because some people will actually click on something or not be so careful, and they're caught. That's phishing. So it's sending out lots of stuff en masse to loads and loads of people.
So on the other side of the coin, what's junk email?
Junk email?
It's just rubbish.
Yeah, it's just, it's the local politician saying, "I want your vote." We're not in a state of purdah, so I think I'm okay.
We're okay, yeah, we ain't got purdah. Yeah, we're restricted on here on purdah, so we have to be very careful when that occurs. How can you tell? Can you tell if you've got a phishing email, or is it that virtually impossible to do?
No, it is, because usually these people that do these things are kind of illiterate. There'll be mistakes in the spelling. There'll be mistakes in the links. I always think if it is important, someone is actually going to contact you, generally by post, or they'll ring you up on a number, which you can then ring back to prove whose the identity is. If it's an email and you think this looks dodgy, or I don't recognise the sender, or it's just not quite right, delete it.
Yeah, that's what I normally do, because I get a hell of a lot of emails coming in from the States. I'm just getting a pile now for veterans funds and things like that.
Yeah, the big broadband providers are better at your spam filters and getting them removed before they get there. But these people are very clever in what they do, and they will just continually go along. And that's one of the things that we find. If you, sadly enough, have been defrauded by this group, you're then likely to go onto a scammers list, and they'll retarget you. So our advice from our team would be, you might want to consider changing your email address.
Because I blocked these people. I blocked a couple of them, and all of a sudden, about a week later, they come back again. So they've bypassed my block and resent out under a different.
Because they'll just change a dot or a character on the email address, and it'll just come through. So sometimes the better thing to do would be to actually just change your email.
Okay, right. We're going to go for another break, Mark, and then when we come back, there's a couple of protection questions I wanted to ask you. So keep listening, folks. This is really turning into a good interview. So keep listening.
This is Norman Knapper on Over to You.
At Ferrars Hall Care Home in Huntingdon, we are led by kindness, compassion and dignity. And our care is the kind we'd want all our loved ones to receive. Whether you're looking for specialist dementia care, a short respite stay or long-term residential care, why not speak to our friendly team who will help you understand your options. Call 01480 456 359. That's Huntingdon 456 359. Or search Ferrars Hall Care Home online. The Priory at 83 High Street, Huntingdon is the home of Da Vinci's Pizzeria and Rajput Indian Restaurant, where we welcome you to eat inside or take away. We take great pride in offering the highest quality ingredients and an excellent selection of wines, beers and cocktails. We can also offer our newly refurbished function room for any event. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, or call to book a table on 01480 450 676 for Rajput, or 01480 509 863 for Da Vinci's Pizzeria.
I
you go. That was Dead End Street by the Kinks. We're talking about fraud and cybercrime, and I'm talking to Sergeant Mark Rabel from Cambridge Police, and we are going to talk a little bit more about this subject. So, Mark, before the break, we were talking about phishing and what have you. So, how is social engineering used?
So everyone believes a lie. There is a lie for everyone. And for the people that are listening, you think, is that right? If you think, I'll take it to a personal level, and you think about different relationships you may have had over your lifetime or when you were younger, how many lies were told to engineer a social situation? Everyone believes a lie. So it doesn't matter whether you're, if you're happy enough to be in your 90s or whether you're 16, there will be. So typically in a fraudulent situation, there's generally some sense of urgency, that say who they are. It's an opportunity too good not to take advantage of, or there's consequence if we don't take advantage of it fairly quickly. And they're two of the trains that are used. I often think from unless you're crossing the road and a bus is bearing down on you, there should be no rush to do anything. So if something comes in and you think, didn't I pay my TV licence? Or is this link really from my mate and they sent it to us? Just take a pause. That pause and just having another little look at something can make the difference between you doing something immediately and rashly without actually stopping to consider it. We used lots of different acronyms like ABCs. Assume nothing, believe nothing, check everything, because it's very easy to get caught depending on the lie that is being told.
Yeah.
And social engineering to get you to click on this link or accept the person's going to do your tarmac and still let grass grow through. It's everyone. There's a lie for everyone.
So, now we get to the nitty-gritty. How can we protect ourselves from all this fraud and cybercrime? Okay, so there's two answers to this. So first of all, for those of us that are lucky enough to have an internet-enabled phone, or we use a computer, or we're on the internet, I think probably the single biggest tip that I will give to people to take away will be your primary email address. Make sure you protect that with a very, very strong password. So using your name and your year of birth afterwards and maybe a question mark after that is no good. If you use the password like spelt P-A, and instead of the S's I put 55 and then a W and then a 0 and then an R and a D and a question mark on the back of it, I could probably crack that in less than a minute. It's not good enough. You need to have a really strong password. Write it down in the book. Keep your book safe. Because what happens is that if your primary email address and password is stolen, all the sites that you shop at, like say Amazon or Tesco's or whatever, use DPD tracking, you could go on there and you say, I've lost my password, send me a reset link. And that reset link will be sent to someone else. So passwords, two-factor authentication if it's possible, and turn that on. But use a strong password. And when I say a strong password, basic advice, think of 3 separate randomised words, like light, microphone, because I'm in a studio, and briefcase. And you join them together, and that's your, because there's a lot of characters, more difficult to crack. I actually like the password managers and what have you, but protect your primary email address. Use a really strong password where you go onto sites and you sign up things and says, what's your mother's maiden name? What place were you born in? What was your pet's first name? What was your first car that you had? Don't use variable answers, because otherwise through your social media, it's easy to extract that information and then you're going to kind of gone. So that's online. But if you're not online, it means that you're probably more vulnerable to being socially engineered by a dodgy driveway or roof. And what I'd say to protect ourselves in that sense, I ask you to keep in contact and keep an eye out for those people in our community that are potentially lonely and isolated, and use people like Neighbourhood Watch
and what have you to support that. Those people are quite often subject to telephone scams, and we've got some nifty products that we can help with that. You can contact our fraud and cybercrime team at CAMS Constabulary, and we can give you more information in relation to what we can do there.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I've got one last question for you, Mark, and it's the thing that everybody thinks at the end, oh God, I've been scammed, or I've done this or that. Who do we report it to?
Action Fraud.
Action Fraud.
Yeah.
They are not linked to the police, are they?
No.
In a way, what I mean is that they are civilians which take the information and pass it on to yourselves.
Yeah, they collate all the information, and I think it's important because that way we have a national picture. But they take the information. If you're unlucky enough to have this happen to you in Cambridgeshire, if you report it to Action Fraud, one of my team will be in contact with you as a direct and personal follow-up. And we do that every week to about 120 to 140 people a week we're in contact with. And depending on the seriousness, we might even come around and visit you and what have you.
Well, that's right. I've just realised something, because I remember when I reported my problem to Action Fraud, about 6 weeks later, I got a phone call. And it was from Cambridge Police. They
would have been one of my team, yeah.
Reviewed and did, as anything else happened, and all the rest of it. So they did it that way. So is it just Action Fraud they report it to, or can they report it to anybody else?
No, at the moment that's the National Reporting Centre.
Right, okay. So
there are a couple of numbers where you can forward text messages to and what have you, but Action Fraud, if you're subject to a fraud attempt or subject to a fraud, tell them.
So they just need to Google Action Fraud, and it'll give them they give them the website, and they can do it that way.
Yep.
Good. Okay. That's it, Mark. Believe it or not, that's it.
No, thank you, and thanks ever so much for having me here. I believe that if we do nothing is the result. So if anyone's listening, and if even just one of you changes your password and has a stronger password, or if someone else calls in a neighbour that might be isolated, that's an achievement, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to ask that.
Just a quick one. You mentioned about looking after people. As I say, we've got about a minute left, and you talked about looking. How can we protect others? Is it that just making sure that they're not being? How can you tell if they're being scammed or what have you?
So if your mate says, "Oh, I've got this great deal," or starts acting a little bit furtively, but ask them what's going on. That's I'm not talking about if it's like computer related. If it's not computer related, call in people and visit them.
Yeah.
And keep an eye out for other people's welfare. I think it's really important. If you're not sure. Our details are on the internet as well, Cambridgeshire Constabulary. You're welcome to ask any of our team if you want us to come round and speak to a neighbourhood group and actually go through do's and don'ts. Community engagement's really important to us. We'll come out and do that. It doesn't cost you anything. We'll do that for as part of what we do for the job.
It's a magic word, isn't it? It's free.
Well,
With these days, it's free. It's free. Brilliant, Mark. Thank you very much for coming in this evening.
You're welcome.
And I hope to hear from you. We were just talking about possibilities of future interviews, so I hope to see yourself or one of your colleagues in the future.
Yep. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mark. Thank you very much. There we go. That was Sergeant Mark Rabel from the Cambridge Constabulary Fraud and Cybercrime Protection Group. I am back. When am I back? Oh, yes, I am back on Wednesday evening. I'm back on Wednesday evening, and I've got... It's a strange one, because I'm talking to a lady from St. Neots Museum, and I've had her on a few times before, and she always brings in little examples of what's available. And trying to describe what she's actually showing us is an interview in itself. But she's back on with me on Wednesday, and we're talking about basically the archaeology that went on from 2018 and what they dug up, what they found, and what is available through going online and visiting the museum. Now, coming up after me, we have got the Soul and Motown show, and I think it's John Rea again this evening. It was John Rea last week. So, yes, it is John. I'm just looking down the list there. It's John Rea. So he's back on at 8 o'clock. And at 10 o'clock, we have got the Late Show with Tony Obie. So I will say to you, God bless, look after yourself, and listen to what Mark said, and hopefully you won't get scammed. So, good night. God bless.
hungry, get along to Chili Bites. With amazing tandoori and curry dishes, plus burgers, kebabs, chicken and pizza, we've got something for all tastes. We're open Monday to Thursday, 4:30pm to 11pm. Friday and Saturday, 4:30pm to midnight. And Sundays from 4:30pm to 11pm. But you don't have to come to us, we will deliver. Call Chili Bite on Huntingdon 356 000. Find us online at chilibiteonline.com or download the app.
If you're looking to buy a car, why not come up to Steve's Car Sales in Alconbury and talk to one of our friendly staff that are here to help. With loads to choose from, there's bound to be the right car for you that will come with 12 months MOT, a full service and 12 months warranty on parts and labour. Terms and conditions apply. Or do you need an MOT? At Steve's Garage, an MOT is just £29. For more information about our stock or other services, visit www.stevescarsales.co.uk or call us on 01480 434400 for car sales, and for our workshop 01480 4599991. Be hassle-free with Steve's Car Sales.
Huntingdon Autos, your first choice for quality used cars in Huntingdonshire. Up to 100 cars always in stock with prices to suit all budgets. And what if it goes wrong? All our cars are covered by warranty with mechanics on duty 7 days a week, and we will even supply a courtesy car. The sales office is open 7 days a week with trained staff to help you decide on the car that's right for you, as well as great finance deals available. So why not take a test drive today and own the car that you've always wanted? Want it? Try it, buy it at Huntingdon Autos, opposite RAF Whitton. Call us on 01480 509 664. That's Huntingdon 509 664. Or why not visit our website huntingdonautos.co.uk. Huntingdon Autos, for the car that you've always wanted.
It's just coming up to 8 o'clock on HCR 104 FM, where the time check is sponsored by Ian's Tyres on Stukely Meadows Industrial Estate. Fantastic offers on tyres and exhausts. Time to get your tyres checked? Call Ian's Tyres on 01480 458 560. That's 458 560.